It was past midnight, and the rain was falling softly on the old metal roof of Ethan's house. He lived alone on the edge of a quiet town, where the forest met the hills. The world outside was calm, but inside his small home, the lights flickered as if something far away disturbed the power. Ethan sat at his desk, fixing a broken circuit board, unaware that this night would change his life forever. Suddenly there was a sound, a slow, heavy knock on his door. It wasn't the sound of human hands, it was heavier, echoing through the cold night air. Ethan frowned, his tools falling from his hand. Nobody ever came here at this hour, and his nearest neighbor lived 5 miles away. He stood slowly, his heart beginning to race. The knock came again, louder this time, followed by a voice, soft and trembling. "Please, please open the door," the voice said. Ethan froze. The tone was strange, not quite human, yet filled with pain. He reached for the small scanner on his desk, the one that could read life signs through walls. The screen flickered. 2 life forms outside, one adult, one small, and the readings. They weren't human. Ethan swallowed hard, unsure if he should open the door or call for help. But something in that voice, fear, sadness, and desperation, pulled at his heart. He walked slowly to the door, keeping one hand on the handle and the other on his plasma torch. The rain fell harder now, and thunder rolled in the distance. When he opened the door, he gasped. Standing there was a tall alien woman, her skin a faint blue that shimmered in the rain. Her eyes glowed softly, filled with exhaustion and tears. She was holding the hand of a small child, maybe 6 or 7 years old. The child's silver hair stuck to her face, and her small eyes glowed faintly gold. They looked lost, afraid, and half frozen. "Please," the woman said again, her voice cracking. "I ran away from me husband. Please let me in." Ethan's mind went blank for a second. An alien widow, on Earth, running from her husband? He looked behind her and saw nothing but the dark forest, but in the sky, he thought he saw a faint red light moving between the clouds, like a ship searching the ground. Ethan's chest tightened. He knew that light wasn't human-made. He looked back at the woman, her arms covered with strange marks, like scars that still glowed under her skin. Her clothes were torn and she was shaking badly. The little girl coughed, a sound that didn't seem normal, mixed with a metallic echo. Ethan hesitated only a moment longer, then he opened the door wider. "Come inside, quickly," he said. The woman looked surprised but grateful. She stepped in, carrying her daughter close. As soon as the door closed, the red light outside vanished behind the clouds, as if it had lost their trail. Inside, the room was warm, filled with soft yellow light from old lamps. Ethan brought them towels and water, unsure what to say. The woman sat on the floor, wrapping her child carefully. Her hands were shaking, and Ethan noticed burns on her wrists, like something had restrained her. He asked gently, "Who are you?" She looked up, her voice weak but clear. "My name is Lyra, and this is my daughter, Nira." Ethan nodded slowly, trying to hide his confusion. "What happened to you?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, her eyes full of fear. "He will come for us," she whispered. "He always does." Ethan didn't understand. "Who?" he asked. Lyra looked toward the window, her voice trembling. "My husband, Commander Ralvek." The name sent a chill through the air, though Ethan didn't know why. She continued, "He is part of the Galactic Enforcement Council, and he will never stop until he finds us." Ethan stepped back. "Galactic Enforcement? That's the alien law force, isn't it?" Lyra nodded, tears in her eye. Yes, and he believes Earth should not exist." Ethan's heart pounded, the words echoing in his head. He looked at the little girl, Nira, who was now asleep on the couch, her small fingers glowing faintly. He whispered, "Why did you come to me?" Lyra met his eyes. "Because you're human and you still care." Before Ethan could respond, his scanner beeped again. A signal flashed across the screen, a tracking beacon moving fast toward his location. Lyra saw it too, her face turning pale. "They found us," she whispered. "We have only minutes." Ethan looked at her, at the child, and then at the storm outside. He didn't know why, but something deep inside told him to help them. Maybe it was pity, maybe curiosity, or maybe something greater, a human instinct to protect. He turned off the scanner and grabbed his emergency kit. "Follow me," he said. "I know a place where we can hide." Lyra stared at him in shock. "You'll help us?" Ethan nodded, his voice firm. "If they're coming for you, they'll have to go through me first." Lightning flashed outside, the power flickered, and for a moment, Ethan saw the child's glowing eyes open again. She looked straight at him and whispered softly, Thank you, human. The words sent a strange warmth through his chest. He didn't know it yet, but this night, the knock at midnight, was the start of something far bigger than himself. It was the night a human made a choice that would echo across the stars. Ethan locked the door behind them, his heart still beating fast. The house was silent, except for the sound of rain hitting the windows. Lyra sat near the fire, holding her daughter close, her skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked tired, frightened, and lost. Ethan didn't know where to begin. He had seen many strange things in his life, but never something like this. He placed a small blanket over Nira, who was now asleep on the couch. Her breathing was uneven, and her skin flickered with faint golden light every few seconds. "What's wrong with her?" Ethan asked, kneeling beside them. Lyra touched her daughter's forehead gently. "She's weak," she said. "We've been running for too long." Her voice trembled as if every word hurt to say. Ethan stood and opened a cabinet filled with medical tools. He was an engineer, not a doctor, but he had enough training to treat simple wounds. "Let me help," he said. Lyra looked at him carefully, as if deciding whether to trust him or not. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "All right, but be careful." Ethan turned on his handheld scanner and began checking her arm. The screen blinked in confusion. Strange patterns appeared, full of energy his system couldn't read. "What are these marks?" he asked quietly. Lyra looked down at the glowing lines on her arms. "They're not natural," she whispered. "They're control marks." Ethan frowned. "Control marks?" Lyra nodded, her voice full of pain. "My husband placed them there. To track me. To hurt me when I disobeyed." Ethan's jaw tightened, anger rising inside him. "That's not love," he said. Lyra gave a weak smile. In his world, love means control. She pulled back the fabric on her shoulder, revealing a deep scar that shimmered like liquid light. Ethan could see small metallic veins moving beneath her skin. "What is that?" he asked. "Part of me isn't organic anymore," she said. "He replaced it so I could never leave the system." Ethan tried to scan the area again, but the machine sparked and shut down. Her energy field was too strong, too alien. He sighed and put the scanner aside. "I can't fix this, but I can clean the wound." He brought warm water and gently wiped the area. The blue glow under her skin pulsed slower now, calming slightly under his touch. "You shouldn't have helped me," Lyra said suddenly, her voice soft. "If they find you helping us, they'll ear us. Get you from existence." Ethan looked up, his eyes steady. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm not the type to let someone suffer at my door." Lyra's eyes softened. She looked away, hiding a tear that fell down her cheek. For the first time in years, someone had helped her without asking for anything in return. The fire crackled quietly, and for a moment there was peace. Nira stirred in her sleep, whispering something in a language Ethan didn't understand. Lyra brushed her daughter's hair and whispered, "Shh, you're safe now." Ethan leaned back, trying to make sense of everything. "You said your husband is part of the Galactic Enforcement Council," he said. Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes. They make the laws for the entire galaxy." "And you broke one of those laws?" he asked. Lyra's face turned pale. "I broke the greatest one of all." Ethan frowned. "Which one?" Lyra looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly. "I married a human," she said. Ethan's heart skipped. "A human?" he repeated. "But humans and aliens." "It was forbidden," she interrupted softly. "No human should exist in the galactic record. Earth itself was supposed to be erased long ago." Ethan stared in disbelief. "Then why are we still here?" Lyra lowered her gaze. "Because of Nira," she whispered. "She carries something they fear." Ethan turned toward the sleeping girl, now glowing softly with a golden aura. "What do you mean?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, her lips trembling. "Nira is not just my daughter," she said slowly. "She's proof that life between our species can exist." Her voice shook. "If the Council finds her, they will destroy her, and every human world, to keep their law untouched." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "So you ran," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. "I had no choice." A sudden beeping sound filled the room. Ethan's scanner lit up again. A signal was approaching from the sky. Small, sharp, and getting closer. Lyra jumped to her feet, panic flashing across her face. "No," she whispered. "He's found us already." Ethan grabbed his plasma torch, checking the scanner display. It wasn't a large ship, just a small drone, but it was enough to give away their position. He rushed to the window, pulling down the blinds. "Stay here," he said firmly. Lyra grabbed his arm. "You can't fight them." Ethan looked at her with quiet determination. "I don't have to fight," he said. "I just need to delay." He turned on the defense grid outside his house, a field of cloaking light that blurred the property's signal. The room dimmed, and the hum of energy filled the air. For a moment, they were invisible to the sky. Lyra stared at him, surprised. "You built this yourself?" Ethan nodded. "Just in case I ever needed to hide," he said. Lyra smiled faintly. "Then tonight, you may have saved more than just us." Outside, the storm raged louder, lightning flashing across the dark forest. But inside, Ethan stood guard by the window, watching the sky, unaware that this act of kindness had just placed him at the center of a galactic chase, and somewhere above the clouds, a red light blinked in the darkness. Commander Ralvik had received the signal. He whispered coldly into his communicator. "I've found you, Lyra." The night outside was dark and endless, filled with the low hum of alien engines moving through the clouds. Ethan stood by the window, his hand resting on the old wooden frame. His defense field flickered weakly, barely hiding his home from the scanning drones above. Every few minutes he heard a faint buzzing sound, machines searching the air for a signal. Inside, Lyra sat silently, holding Nira close, the girl's glowing eyes reflecting the firelight. Ethan turned toward them, his face pale but calm. "They're still scanning," he said quietly. "We can't stay here long." Lyra nodded, her voice shaking. "They won't stop until they find me." Her hands trembled as she spoke, and Ethan could see the fear she tried so hard to hide. He sat across from her, his mind racing. He had helped strangers before, but never someone hunted by alien law. "Lyra," he said gently, "you told me your husband is part of something called the Galactic Enforcement Council." She nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "They make the rules that control the stars." "The rules?" Ethan asked. "What kind of rules?" Her eyes darkened. "The kind that decide who deserves to live and who does not." She took a deep breath and looked into the fire, her voice low. "A long time ago, before humans even knew about the galaxy, the Council discovered your planet," she said. "They saw humans as a danger, too emotional, too unpredictable. They decided to erase your kind, but something stopped them." Ethan leaned forward, his heart pounding. "What stopped them?" Lyra hesitated. "A scientist. One of our own," she said softly. "He believed humans were important, that your spirit made the universe stronger. He hid Earth from the records, faked your destruction, and vanished." Ethan stared at her in disbelief. "You're saying we were supposed to be wiped out?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, and if the truth is discovered, they will finish what they started." Her words hung heavy in the air. The rain outside had stopped, but the silence felt worse than thunder. Ethan tried to make sense of it all. "So your husband, Commander Ralvik, he's part of this council?" "Yes," she whispered. "He enforces their laws. He believes emotion is weakness, and he will kill anyone who disobeys." She looked at Nira, her expression softening. "When I gave birth to her, he saw what she was. Part human, part me." Ethan's eyes widened. "Half human?" Lyra nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "He called her a crime, said her existence broke the Galactic Law." Ethan felt anger rising in his chest. "She's just a child," he said. "How can anyone see her as a crime?" Lyra shook her head. "To the Council, she is proof that human life can merge with alien life. That means humans are not weak. They are equal. And if the galaxy learns that, the Council's control will fall." Ethan stood up, pacing the room. "So that's why they're hunting you." "Yes," Lyra whispered. "They want to erase all proof that you exist, and my daughter is that proof." Her voice broke as she said it. Nira stirred in her sleep, her small hand glowing faintly against the blanket. Ethan looked at the little girl and felt something shift inside him. He wasn't just protecting a stranger anymore, he was protecting the truth about his own kind. Suddenly, the defense grid flickered again, this time brighter and louder. Ethan rushed to the control panel, his eyes scanning the readings. "They've found the edge of the shield," he said. "They're trying to break through." Lyra stood up quickly, her eyes wide. "We need to run." Ethan grabbed his coat, his tools, and a small energy pack. "There's an old research bunker in the valley," he said. "It's underground and shielded from scans." Lyra picked up Nira, wrapping her in her cloak. "Then we go now." They moved quickly through the back door, stepping into the cold night. The forest was alive with faint blue lights drifting between the trees, scouting drones searching every direction. Ethan led the way down the narrow path, his boots crunching softly on the wet leaves. Lyra followed close behind, her glowing skin hidden under a black fabric cloak. Above them, a red beam swept across the treetops, scanning for life. Ethan whispered, "Stay low." They ducked behind a large rock just as the beam passed over their heads. For a moment, everything was silent again. Then Lyra looked up, her face pale. "He's coming," she whispered. Ethan frowned. "Who?" She swallowed hard. "Ralvik. My husband, he's here. Ethan froze, his breath catching. How do you know? He asked. Lyra's voice trembled. I can feel his presence through the marks he left on me, she said, clutched her arm in pain as the scars began to glow red under her skin. Ethan grabbed her hand. Fight it, he said. You're stronger than him. Lyra shook her head. You don't understand. He doesn't just command soldiers, he commands the law itself. Her voice grew weaker. He will use the law to destroy everything you love. Ethan looked into the forest, his mind racing. He had never believed in destiny or galactic fate, but now he was standing in the middle of one. He whispered to himself, Then we'll break their law. A cold wind swept through the trees as if the universe itself had heard him. In the distance, the sky glowed faint red, the light of Ralvik's ship descending. Lyra looked toward it, her eyes full of fear. Ethan clenched his fists, ready for whatever came next. The chase had truly begun, and the Galactic Law was about to be tested by one human's heart. The forest was silent except for the low hum of alien engines in the sky. Ethan and Lyra ran through the dark trees, carrying Nira between them. The girl was still half asleep, her small hand glowing faintly under the cloak. Each step they took sent a crunch through the wet leaves, a sound that felt too loud in the quiet night. Ethan's heart beat faster with every passing second. We're close, he whispered. The bunker is just beyond that ridge. Lyra nodded, her breath uneven. We must hurry. The trackers are already in the air. Behind them, the forest glowed red for a moment, searchlights sweeping across the trees. Then came the sound of a ship descending, smooth and powerful. Ethan looked up through the branches and froze. A dark metal shape hovered above the treetops, its underlight spinning slowly like a hungry eye searching for prey. Get down, Ethan said quickly, pulling Lyra and Nira behind a fallen tree. The air crackled as the ship released small drones that spread across the forest like metal insects. They moved fast, scanning everything, their red beams sing through the mist. One of them passed so close to Ethan's face that he could feel the static burn on his skin. Lyra held Nira close, whispering softly in her ear, Don't move, my light. Ethan clenched his fists, watching the machines. His mind raced for a solution, anything that could buy them time. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small cube, a device he had built long ago. He pressed a button and it started to hum, releasing a faint pulse into the air. A few seconds later, the drones began to flicker and lose their focus. Their red eyes dimmed, their scanning beams twisting wildly before turning off completely. Lyra looked at him in surprise. What did you do? Ethan smiled faintly. Signal jammer, he said. They'll be blind for a few minutes. Lyra stared at him with new respect. You're smarter than I thought, human. Ethan grinned a little. I'll take that as a compliment. But before he could say more, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath them. The main ship had landed nearby, and something or someone was stepping out. Through the trees, Ethan saw tall figures moving. They were soldiers, armored in black suits with glowing red visors, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. They moved like machines, precise and silent. One of them scanned the ground. Their trail ends here, a cold voice said through a communicator. Spread out, the commander wants the child alive, another replied. Lyra's eyes widened. They're here, she whispered. Ethan took a deep breath. We have to move now. He picked up Nira and nodded toward the slope ahead. There's an old tunnel entrance just behind that rock wall, he said. Lyra followed close behind, moving as fast as she could without making noise. They reached the tunnel and slipped inside. It was dark, damp, and filled with the smell of earth and old metal. Ethan turned on a small light on his right. Stallless, revealing narrow passageways built long ago by human scientists. This place was part of Project Horizon, he whispered. They built it to study alien signals decades ago. Lyra touched the wall, feeling the rough surface. So this is where your kind first tried to understand the stars? Ethan nodded. Yeah, and now the stars are coming back to haunt us. Before they could go deeper, a sound echoed through the tunnel, footsteps heavy and fast. Ethan turned off the light immediately, pulling Lyra and Nira behind an old machine. The soldiers had followed them inside, their red visors glowing faintly in the darkness. One of them raised a scanner. I'm picking up faint energy readings, he said. Ethan whispered, Stay quiet, his hand tightening on his plasma torch. The soldier stepped closer, scanning the air, his weapon humming softly. Lyra closed her eyes and placed a trembling hand on her daughter's back. A faint golden light began to spread from Nira's skin, soft but steady. The soldier froze, his visor reacting to the light. There! He shouted. Before Ethan could think, the tunnel filled with beams of red light and the sound of energy blasts. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her deeper into the tunnels. Sparks flew from the walls as the shots missed them by inches. He turned and threw his torch at the ceiling, hitting a support beam. The tunnel roof collapsed behind them, cutting the soldiers off. Dust and smoke filled the air, and Lyra coughed, holding Nira tightly. Ethan leaned against the wall, breathing hard. That should slow them down. Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining with both fear and gratitude. You risked your life for us again, she said softly. Ethan smiled weakly. You're starting to sound surprised every time I do. Before she could answer, Nira opened her eyes, the golden glow now stronger. She looked around with confusion. Mama, they're close, she said in a small voice. Lyra stroked her hair. I know, my light, but you must rest. Nira shook her head. No, I can feel him, she whispered. He's coming. Ira froze, her face turning pale. Ralvik, she breathed. Ethan looked toward the blocked tunnel. He's leading them himself, isn't he? Lyra nodded slowly, fear filling her eyes. Yes, and when he arrives, no wall will stop him. Ethan tightened his grip on his tool. Then we don't wait for him to come, he said. He looked down the dark tunnel ahead. We go deeper, to the heart of the bunker. Lyra looked uncertain. What's there? Ethan took a deep breath. Something even the council doesn't know exists. She stared at him, confused, but followed without another word. Behind them, the sound of cracking rock echoed through the tunnel. The soldiers were digging through, and far above, the commander's ship glowed like a red storm in the sky. The first true encounter had begun, and the law of the galaxy was closing in. The tunnels stretched deep beneath the forest, cold and silent. Ethan led the way with a dim light strapped to his wrist, its beam cutting through layers of dust and darkness. The old bunker walls were covered with human writing mixed with alien symbols. Each step echoed softly, reminding them that something ancient slept down there. Lyra carried Nira in her arms, the little girl's faint golden glow lighting their path like a soft candle. How far does this place go? Lyra asked quietly. Deep, Ethan replied. These tunnels were built during a time when humans still dreamed of meeting life beyond the stars. He touched the wall gently, brushing off the dust to reveal faded words. Project Horizon, Human-Alien Contact Division, he read. Lyra frowned. Your kind tried to contact us long before we found you. Ethan nodded. Yeah, but they never knew someone was already watching. Lyra stopped for a moment, listening to the echoes behind them. They're still following, she whispered. Ethan tightened his grip on his plasma torch. Then we keep moving. I reached a large metal door marked with strange warning symbols. Ethan pressed his hand on the scanner, and to his surprise, it still responded. The heavy door opened slowly, releasing a hiss of cold air. Inside was a massive room filled with old human technology, screens, tanks, and strange machines covered with dust. It looked like a forgotten laboratory, silent and untouched for years. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes wide. What is this place? Ethan walked to one of the consoles, wiping away the dirt. This lab studied alien genetics, he said. They wanted to understand your biology. Lyra looked uneasy. Then maybe they were closer to the truth than they realized. Ethan turned toward her. What do you mean? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked down at Nira, who was now awake and watching everything silently. The little girl touched one of the machines, and it flickered to life. Ethan jumped back. How did she? Lyra whispered. She connects with technology like it's part of her. The screen came alive with symbols and images, flashing between human DNA and alien codes. Ethan stared in shock. This machine, it's analyzing her genetic pattern. Lyra nodded slowly. Now you'll see what I meant when I said she's different. The screen displayed a double helix structure, half glowing blue and half gold. Ethan's voice trembled. Her DNA, it's merging both species. Lyra's expression was heavy with pain and pride. Yes, she carries both worlds inside her. Ethan looked at Nira, who was staring at her reflection on the screen. What happens if they find her? He asked quietly. Lyra's eyes darkened. They'll dissect her, study her, use her to control both races. Ethan clenched his fists. Not while I'm alive. Nira tilted her head, her eyes glowing brighter. They're coming, she said softly. Ethan and Lyra turned quickly toward the door. From the tunnel, the sound of footsteps and metal echoed closer. Lyra whispered, They've broken through. Ethan rushed to the console, trying to activate the lab's defense system, but most of the machines were dead, old wires sparking with weak energy. Come on, he muttered, trying to power it manually. Lyra stood ready, her hands glowing faint blue with energy. You can fight? Ethan asked in surprise. Lyra smiled faintly. I'm not just a scientist's wife, she said. I was trained before I ran. As the soldiers entered the chamber, the red lights cut through the dust. Ethan hit a switch. and the lab's emergency lights flared, blinding the soldiers for a moment. Lyra raised her hands, and a wave of blue energy burst outward, knocking two of them back. Ethan used his plasma torch to slice through another's weapon, sending sparks flying. The room filled with chaos, shouts, light, and smoke. In the middle of it all, Nira stood perfectly still, watching everything quietly. Then her eyes changed color, from gold to bright white. The machines around her began to hum, the screens lighting up one by one, wires lifted from the ground as if pulled by invisible hands. "Ethan!" Lyra shouted. "Get away from her!" But it was too late. The whole lab shook as Nira released a burst of energy that rippled through the walls. The soldiers froze mid-motion, their armor flickering like broken lights. Ethan could feel the power around him. It was both terrifying and beautiful. The machines that had been dead for decades came alive, spinning, flashing, and connecting to each other. Lyra ran to her daughter, wrapping her arms around her. "Nira, stop, you're hurting yourself," she pleaded. The little girl looked up, her voice distant and echoing. "I can feel them, Mama. All their minds, all their pain." Her body shook, and tears streamed down her cheeks made of light. Ethan rushed to help, grabbing a metal rod and using it to ground the energy. The lights flickered again, and the room slowly quieted. Lyra held Nira tightly, her face full of fear, and love. "She's too powerful," she whispered. "The merge is accelerating." Ethan crouched beside them, breathing heavily. "We'll find a way to control it." Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand, she wasn't supposed to exist." Ethan met her eyes, his voice firm. "Then maybe she's here to change what's supposed to exist." Lyra looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You sound like the human my people were once afraid of." He smiled slightly. "Good." The silence didn't last long. A low mechanical voice echoed through the tunnel behind them. It was calm, deep, and full of authority. "Lyra," it said, "you cannot hide from me." Ethan froze. The sound sent a chill down his spine. Lyra's face turned white. "Ralvek," she whispered. Nira clung to her mother, trembling. Ethan looked toward the glowing tunnel, his jaw tightening. The commander had arrived, and the final part of the chase was about to begin. The secrets were no longer hidden. They were alive, breathing, and ready to fight. The ground trembled beneath the old bunker, dust falling from the ceiling like rain. Ethan could feel the vibration through his boots, deep and heavy. A sound followed, a metallic thud that echoed through the tunnels. Lyra's breathing quickened. She held Nira close, her hands shaking. "He's here," she whispered. "Ralvek has found us." Ethan looked toward the tunnel entrance, where a faint red light flickered. It wasn't a drone or a soldier this time. It was something much stronger. Through the darkness came the steady rhythm of armored footsteps, slow and deliberate. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the oxygen itself didn't want to move. Then he appeared, tall and terrifying, covered in black armor that glowed with lines of crimson energy. Commander Ralvek, the enforcer of Galactic Law. His face was hidden behind a sharp metal mask, but his voice carried enough power to shake the walls. "Lyra," he said calmly, "you've made me travel across 3 systems for this nonsense." Lyra's voice broke. "It's not nonsense, Ralvek. It's freedom." He tilted. His head slightly. "Freedom is a word for those who've already lost." Ethan stepped forward, holding his plasma torch tightly. "You need to leave them alone," he said, his voice steady, though his heart raced. Ralvek turned his head toward him, studying the human for a long, silent moment. "A human," he said finally. "So this is the weakness that ruined you," Lyra shouted. "He's not weakness, Ralvek. He's the reason I remembered what life meant." Ralvek laughed softly, the sound cold and cruel. "You always had a taste for broken things." He took a step closer, and the floor beneath him cracked. Ethan could feel the raw power radiating from the armor. "Do you even understand what you've done, Lyra?" Ralvek said. "You broke the first law of the stars. You gave birth to something that should never exist." Nira hid her face against her mother. Trembling, Lyra stood firm. "She's our daughter, not your experiment." Ralvek's voice deepened. "She's an abomination, a flaw in creation." Ethan raised his voice. "She's a child." Ralvek turned his gaze toward him again. "A child who carries the code of destruction." Ethan clenched his fists. "You're afraid of her, aren't you?" For the first time, Ralvek hesitated. His glowing eyes flickered under the mask. "I fear nothing," he said slowly, but the edge in his tone told another story. The bunker lights flickered again, and the walls vibrated as Ralvek raised his hand. A wave of red energy pulsed forward, knocking Ethan backward into a wall. He gasped in pain but refused to fall. Lyra stepped in front of him, summoning a shield of blue light that cracked under the force. "Stop this, Ralvek," she cried. "You'll destroy us all." Ralvek spread his arms, the red aura surrounding him like fire. "That's the point." Nira screamed, her small voice echoing through the room like thunder. Her golden light burst outward, colliding with Ralvik's energy in a blinding flash. The shockwave sent them all to the ground, machines exploded, sparks flew, and the walls began to crumble. When the light faded, Ethan saw Nira standing alone in the center of the chaos, her eyes glowing bright white, her small hands trembling as energy swirled around her. Ralvik struggled to his feet, his armor cracked and smoking. He stared at his daughter, astonished. "Impossible," he muttered. "No being should hold this much power." Nira's voice echoed, soft yet strong. "You hurt my mother." Her power flared again, the room shaking. Ethan crawled toward her. "Nira, stop," he said gently. "You're not like him." Lyra reached her too, wrapping her arms around the child. "Nira, please," she whispered. "You're safe now. You don't need to fight." The golden light dimmed, fading slowly until the bunker was quiet again. Nira fell limp in her mother's arms, exhausted but alive. Ralvik lowered his weapon, staring at them in disbelief. He took a slow step forward, his voice quieter now. "You think this power makes you free?" Lyra looked up. "It makes us human." Ralvik paused, the word cutting through his pride. "Human," he repeated softly as if testing the sound. "A disease that spreads through compassion." Ethan stood again, his clothes torn and his face bruised. "You call it a disease," he said, "but it's the only reason she's still alive." Ralvik turned toward him, his voice colder than ever. "And it will be the reason you die." He raised his weapon again, aiming straight at Ethan, but before he could fire, the bunker lights flickered once more. Something else was happening. A deep hum filled the air. The machines around them began to move again. The old human technology reacted to Nira's energy, connecting, glowing, and forming symbols in the air. Ethan looked around in awe. "She's reawakening the system." Lyra gasped. "No, she's linking to it." Ralvik stepped back, realizing too late what was happening. The machines were responding to the human alien DNA, creating something new, something alive. The light grew brighter until no one could see. Then everything went silent. When the glow faded, Nira was standing between them, her eyes pure gold. Her voice was calm. "I don't want to fight anymore." Lyra cried softly, reaching out for her. Ralvik stood frozen, unable to move or speak. The energy around Nira pulsed once more, sending ripples through the air. Then she whispered, "But I will not let you hurt anyone again." A wave of golden light spread through the bunker, knocking Ralvik backward and shattering what remained of his armor. He crashed into the wall, the mask falling from his face, revealing eyes filled with both rage and regret. He looked at his daughter one last time and whispered, "You are not meant to exist." Nira's eyes softened. "Maybe not," she said, "but I do." The light dimmed, and the bunker fell silent again. Ethan rushed to Lyra and Nira, holding them both close. Outside, the sky glowed faint gold, as if the universe itself had felt the child's choice. The husband had returned, but something far greater had awakened in his place. The power of a new beginning. The air inside the bunker shimmered like sunlight underwater. Everything was silent after the explosion of light. The dust had settled, but the world itself felt different. Ethan slowly opened his eyes and saw Lyra and Nira beside him, lying on the cold floor. The machines around them were melted and still glowing faintly with gold light. Ralvik lay against the wall, his armor shattered, his mask broken in two. His face was pale and exhausted, his once cold eyes now filled with disbelief. The mighty commander of the Galactic Law had been defeated not by war, but by his own family. Lyra held her daughter close, her heart still racing. "Is it over?" she whispered. Ethan looked around, unsure how to answer. "I don't know," he said softly, "but I think something's changed." Nira stood slowly, the glow around her dimming. Her golden eyes reflected sadness rather than power. She looked at her father, who was struggling to breathe. He reached a trembling hand toward her. "What are you?" he asked weakly. Nira stepped closer, her small voice calm and clear. "I'm what you were afraid to become." Ralvik's eyes widened. A mix of weakness and chaos. She shook her head gently. A mix of love and life. Ethan watched silently, unsure what would happen next. Lyra stood too, her body weak but her spirit unbroken. "Ralvik," she said softly, "you could have chosen peace." He gave a bitter laugh, coughing. "Peace is an illusion created by the powerless." "No," Ethan said, stepping forward. "Peace is what gives us strength to build something better." Ralvik turned his gaze toward the human, the corners of his mouth twitching into a tired smile. "You humans," he said, "always believing your emotions make you special." Ethan nodded. "They do." A low rumble echoed through the bunker as the ceiling began to crack. Lyra looked up in alarm. "The structure is collapsing." Ethan helped her lift Nira. "We have to move." Ralvek tried to stand but collapsed again, his strength fading. Lyra hesitated, torn between anger and compassion. "He'll die here," she said quietly. Ethan looked at her. "After everything he's done, you still care." Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. "He was cruel, but he once loved me." Nira looked at her father one last time. "Let's save him," she said simply. Ethan didn't argue. He helped lift Ralvek's arm and pulled him onto his shoulder. Together they stumbled toward the tunnel. The walls groaned, lights flickered, and pieces of metal fell around them. Outside, the storm had cleared, the sky painted in strange colors, gold, blue, and violet. It felt as if the universe itself was holding its breath, watching. They emerged from the bunker just before it collapsed completely. Ethan dropped to his knees, gasping for air. Ralvek lay motionless beside him, the glow from his armor fading to gray. Lyra and Nira stood near the edge of the hill, looking up at the night sky. The stars shimmered brighter than ever before, like a sea of silent witnesses. Ralvek opened his eyes weakly, looking at them. "You can run forever," he said, "but the council will never stop." Lyra turned to him. "Then we'll show them what they fear." He frowned. "And what is that?" Nira stepped forward, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "That we can choose," she said. Ralvek looked confused. "Choose what?" "Choose love over control," Nira whispered. "Life over law." Her words hung in the air like a soft song. Ethan felt something stir deep within him, a sense that the child's words were more than just emotion. They were truth, the kind of truth that rewrites history. A beam of golden light spread from Nira, shooting into the sky. It expanded outward, faster than thought, reaching the stars above. Across the galaxy, communication towers, ships, and stations flickered for a moment. Everywhere, beings of every kind paused and looked toward the heavens. A strange warmth filled the air, and a voice echoed faintly across distant worlds. "Life chooses itself," it said. Ralvek closed his eyes, a single tear slipping down his face. "I understand now," he murmured. "You were never the threat. I was." Lyra knelt beside him, holding his hand for the first time in years. "You could still make a different choice," she said gently. He smiled faintly. "Then let my choice be this." He looked at Nira and whispered, "Live free." And with that, the light in his eyes faded, his body turning still. The night fell silent again. Ethan looked up at the stars, each one shining brighter than before. Lyra placed her arm around his shoulder. "He's gone," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "Maybe not," he replied. "Maybe he's part of the light now." Nira stood between them, her hair glowing faintly gold, her small face calm and wise. She looked at the sky and smiled. "They can see us now." Lyra frowned. "Who?" "The ones who hid Earth long ago," Nira said. "They know humanity still lives." A soft breeze passed through the forest, carrying the scent of rain and electricity. Ethan looked at Lyra. "What happens now?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Now, the galaxy will learn what it means to be human." Ethan chuckled quietly. "They're not ready for that." Lyra looked at him with warmth. "No one ever is." As dawn broke over the horizon, the sky glowed gold and blue. Ethan, Lyra, and Nira stood together, watching the sunrise. Somewhere, far beyond the stars, new messages were being written. The Galactic Law had been broken, rewritten not by weapons, but by a choice. The choice of a child born from two worlds, a choice that changed the galaxy forever.